The Rob Dibble Show.
Back on the Rob Dibble Show. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Rob, Ben, Alec here in the studio. Dom Amore now on the hotline from the Hartford Courant. Let's talk some UConn football first, Dom. What were your thoughts on week one, UConn taking out Central?
Well, I thought it was about what I expected, maybe on UConn's side a little bit more. I mean, it was a closer game a couple of years ago, but UConn's obviously better. Central's better. But I thought Central gave, despite what the score would indicate, I thought Central gave a good account of itself and is going to have a good year in their conference. And as far as UConn goes, Rob, they took care of business. They were explosive on offense and put games away, which is something we haven't always seen from them, even against that kind of competition. So all good for UConn, but obviously we'll know a lot more about them on Saturday.
What is the big prize, do you think, on Saturday? I need something to win, not like a civil conflict trophy. I don't need any of that. But this is an ACC team. This is an ACC team with a lot of expectations. I know they lost to Tennessee, but that's a really good football program. They beat North Carolina last year, UConn that is, in that Fenway Bowl. But I would argue that, they didn't have their best players. Marion Hampton wouldn't even run the football. What would it mean for UConn to win this football game? What are kind of the ancillary prizes that could be won if they have a great showing against Syracuse on Saturday?
Well, what it does is it shows to anybody who needs to be shown that they can compete against teams in that conference, the ACC. I think UConn ultimately would like to get into the ACC. I think I feel like the way they're scheduling, that they're kind of gradually making some type of inroad into that conference. They've got 3 or 4 teams from that conference every year. So I just think it's it would be another example that UConn can play in that conference and would be a viable football option for that conference. That what UConn could do for their basketball, and they need it. And if they can help their basketball and UConn can show that it certainly wouldn't hurt their football, then that's what UConn can prove here. So now, again, you can't get yourself into a conference based on one game or one season. But if over a period of time you can show that you're competitive against the teams in that conference, as well as successful against the group of 5, then you're in the best position to get the call if they want to add.
All right, so let's try to start some trouble so maybe UConn will get pumped up. So overheard a practice. Syracuse is basically saying, yeah, we're going to get a W this week, no problem. Kind of looking past UConn. They're favored by more than a touchdown. If UConn could beat Syracuse and then, beat Delaware, come back 3-0 against Ball State, do you think we have an opportunity to go back to like 35,000 fans? I mean, or do you think they'll still support UConn if they lose to Syracuse, win in Delaware, and they come back 2-1? Do you think it's going to be the same, where we get the same 35,000 fans? And like you said, they want to get into the ACC, but you got to start showing the ACC or any of these respective conferences that you can draw some fans, and that not just the product looks respectable, your fan base looks respectable.
Well, one's got to follow from the other. I think if they beat Syracuse, people around here will get extremely excited. And I do think a 3-0 UConn team, I think you would have a big crowd, maybe a sellout crowd, maybe 35,000 who actually come into the stadium and sit down, which was really not the case last week.
Nope.
I mean, I hated to be negative about that, but and if you guys were there, that
we were both there. It is what it is. You're right.
It certainly wasn't 37,000 in the stadium sitting down, and that's what UConn needs. They need to build excitement, but this is a part of the country, Rob, where you got to win before people come out. It's not a place where you're going to still sell the stadium. When UConn went out to Michigan, I mean, they had 100,000 people there because, hey, if Michigan's playing, that place is going to be sold out. And, this part of the country, UConn, Rutgers, Boston College, Temple, that doesn't happen. Maybe in Syracuse it does. But I think UConn needs a win like this, and then maybe another couple of more to really get to where people are excited about UConn football, and it's an event when they play. Because otherwise, the teams on their schedule, I think for a lot of people, the UConn football season is Syracuse, Boston College, and Duke. What they do in those games is going to define the UConn season for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think if they win this week, it certainly would be different. 2-1, people would be very interested, I think, but 3-0, they'd be really juiced.
I don't know if you've read any or looked at any of the excerpts from the new book that's about to be released from Dan Hurley. I did see CBS Sports put this out today that was shocking for me to hear. And this is a quote from the book. He writes, "I thought about leaving," he's talking about last year, "taking a gap year, resigning as head coach of the UConn Huskies." And he was citing that the pressure of a three-peat was just so immense that he was not, in his estimation, a good leader compared to the other 2 years. I don't know if you saw that or not, Dom. If you did, what were your thoughts on that? And just like, what kind of space do you think coach is in going into this year? Because you would think a bad year is going to be pressure following that, but following 2 national championships, you'd think you would be golden and excited to come back for a third.
Right. Well, first of all, I didn't realize Dan also had a book coming out. That's nice. But no, I thought that Dan is a guy that is a thinker. He thinks, maybe overthinks some things, and his mind's always going 100 miles an hour. And yeah, I think a lot of the pressure on him last year was pressure that he put on himself.
Right.
I think he put this on himself to win 3 in a row and catch wood, when he should have known that it's not impossible to do, but it's very, very hard to come back and do that 3 years in a row. So, it doesn't really shock me that he maybe gave some thought to it. But, when people write books, when famous people write books, they do divulge some things that went on behind the scenes that weren't known, but you don't know just how serious, they were. So I don't know how. I have a hard time believing that he was super serious about leaving UConn and going to be a TV analyst. Because I'll tell you what, I think he would have been miserable doing that.
I agree.
If he did that. Yeah. But so I don't know how serious he was. But when coaches or players write books, there are going to be some things in there like this that surprise you. I think, I don't have any question that he has the fire in the belly to continue coaching UConn football, UConn basketball. And if he did seriously consider that, I think he is over it. And I think he's ready to maybe start a new streak. He's got a really, really good team. And he's really, kind of built – when he would talk about wanting UConn to be known as one of the best basketball organizations in the world, I didn't really know what the heck he was talking about. But now I kind of do, because they have a general manager and they're bringing in players from all over the world, and a deep team, 14, 15 guys developing behind the scenes who may play in a couple of years. It's almost like an academy, like a soccer club with an academy attached. He's building something in UConn that I really don't think he wants to walk away from. And I guess I'm a little skeptical as how seriously he really considered walking away. But it's the kind of thing, if you're writing a book, you put it in there.
All right, tell us about the book you co-authored with Jim Calhoun that is out there now. I know I'm reading from some of these excerpts from the podcast that you did, and you said, you were asked, why did he write another book? But tell us some stuff about Jim Calhoun that people may or may not know already about this guy and why he's so beloved by his former players.
Well, Jim, he got this idea. He read a book called The Wax Pack, which was actually a baseball book where somebody got a pack of 80s baseball cards, opened it up, and he went and tracked down all the players on the cards in that pack and what they were doing now. And Jim got the idea of maybe picking out 12, 13, 15 people that he coached, or players, people that he touched, and going and telling their story and his relationship with them, their thoughts on him. So it's not a memoir. It's not a book about his life story. Obviously, the things that happened early in Jim's life, losing his father when he was 15, played a big role in shaping who he is and trying to pay forward what coaches did for him when he was a teenager with a lot of conflict inside. So that's all part of the book. But what it really does is it examines his relationships and how he formed them and how he coached different players. And yet there are the usual people that you would want to read about, like Ray Allen, Rip Hamilton, Caron Butler. But there are also a lot of people you might not know about, like, guys at St. Joe's, guys at Dedham High School way back when. One guy went on to work for NASA. So I think people will find it a really good. If you're a UConn fan, it's a must-read. If you like college basketball, if you're just interested in the coaching dynamic and how coaches build relationships, I think you're going to find it a great book. There aren't going to be any shock waves like we just talked about in the book, but I think people will find it a very good, worthwhile book. It's coming out October 7th, and you can order it anytime now on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So I hope people give it a look, put it on their Christmas list.
I was just with Emeka Okafor at the Donnie Marshall Classic over there supporting the Talent Fund at Foxwoods Golf Course at Lake Viles. Mm-hmm. Emeka looks like he can play. Like, the dude is in great shape. His back is healthy. And, the guy is just such a model citizen. And I asked him, I was like, Emeka, were you Calhoun's favorite? And it just, his eyes lit up like, yeah, I might have been. What can you tell me about Emeka and some of those stories that you were just talking about? And the one thing too, Dom, I was just going to say that the common thread that I find with all these guys when they come from a background like that and they meet Calhoun, they want to be, like, obviously coached hard, but if you tell them exactly, like, you're going to run 4 miles today, like, okay, instead of sneaking up on them and like, all right, you're running 4 miles out of the blue. Like, if you told them exactly what they're getting into, thumbs up, gung-ho, let's do it. But if you surprise them, all of a sudden, then they might even transfer.
Well, you know what? I think the common thread between Jim Calhoun and Dan Hurley is that I think they both believe and they both sort of embody the idea that you can coach players hard, you can coach players tough, you could say almost anything to a player as long as they know you care about them, as long as they know that it's coming from a place that has their best interest at heart. And that's really kind of the theme of Jim's book and Jim's coaching career, is that, he could be very tough on players, and people remember, the cursing and the hollering and think of him as this tough, gruff guy. But players accepted the hard coaching from him because they knew he had their best interest in heart. That's, I think, something he has in common with Dan Hurley, who, by the way, wrote the foreword to our book. Mark Daignault wrote the afterword. But, the interesting thing about Emeka, Ben, is that we didn't do a chapter on him. And I don't know, kidding around, I guess he was a little miffed about that. But Jim said, Emeka was almost a model player, model student. I didn't really have to do much with him. There wasn't, he didn't really need a lot of hard coaching. So I think Jim focused on other guys where he felt he really had an impact. I think the implication was that, Emeka could have been a huge star no matter where he went, and he was just ready to go, and still is, of course, still a big success in everything that he does. But I think Jim focused on players and people that he felt he really had a big impact on, and I told Emeka we'll save him for the sequel.
The book is called More Than a Game, How the UConn Dynasty Was Built on a Culture of Caring. Jim Calhoun and Dom Amore. He says, it's out October 7th?
Yep, be out October 7th, and we'll be doing book signings and events all over the state in the coming months. And I would encourage you guys to give Jim a call and have him on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be a great listen, as he always is.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to
talk a little baseball?
Yeah, let's talk a little baseball, and let's just take Yankees, Mets, Red Sox in your mind right now. And we got about 30 games to go, less than 30 games to go. Who do you like to go the farthest in the postseason?
Well, I think right now I lean toward the Red Sox because, of course, when I've seen them up close, they've been playing the Yankees, so they dominated. And, of course, they have those two pitchers at the top of their rotation. And the guys at very important in the postseason, the guys at the back end of their bullpen are pitching great, right? I mean, Chapman, it's like he's better today than he was 10 years ago. He's on point, and he doesn't really. I don't think he's had a hiccup that I've seen. And their other relievers have been good, and the guys they picked up have been good. I think if the Yankees can organize their bullpen to that level, then I would say that they could go the farthest, because I think they have probably more of the other elements going for them, especially if the two lefties at the top of their rotation are pitching the way Fried did last night, or the way Rodon did the last time he pitched. So I think there's, but right now, I mean, the Red Sox have really played great for about 3 months. And, the Yankees played great for 2 months, terrible for 2 months, okay for the last few weeks. The Mets are also starting to get it together. They're relying an awful lot now on very young, inexperienced pitchers, guys just up in the major leagues. It's tough to do, but boy, if those guys pitch like they've pitched so far, it could work. And certainly Juan Soto is starting to carry the Mets. I mean, it looks sillier and sillier every day that he wasn't on the All-Star team. So, I think they all have a chance. Everybody's bunched together, Rob. Milwaukee set themselves apart a little bit. But, I mean, the Yankees could be the last wild card, or they could be the number one seed. They're 2 games in the loss column from being the number one seed. So everybody's bunched together. Whoever plays the best in the next 25 games is going to be in the best position. And we all know in the postseason, you can throw everything out the window. But, right now I feel like the Red Sox have played most consistent baseball for the longest period of time, and they really haven't had a let-up. Had a tough series against Pittsburgh, but they bounced right out of that. So that would be my take. I mean, they're close, though, because I think there are probably 10 teams that have the same chance to do it. Dodgers aren't unbeatable. Philadelphia's not unbeatable. They lost their ace. Milwaukee obviously has jumped out ahead, but I'll have to believe it before I see that they're unbeatable in the postseason. So I just don't. Tigers have cooled off. So I just think it's anybody's game. And right now I think the Yankees have to play well against good teams. That's what they haven't done. Last night was a good start, but the next 11 are going to tell you everything you need to know about them, I think.
How about our guy, George Springer? I mean, another leadoff home run last night. He's got 2 home runs. I track the 300 club, Dom, and I'm talking batting average. Right now, he's one of the 7 guys that has been there pretty much all year. George Springer's been the top of that pile in batting average. But he's just having a career year. That team seems like they're really gelling at the right time. What kind of chances do you give the Toronto Blue Jays?
Well, their pitching and particularly their bullpen has been struggling quite a bit of late. And, that happens. So one of the reasons why you have these waves and these ups and swings in the standings is because when teams win over a long period of time, they use their top relievers a lot, and then they get worn out, and then they start to struggle. So Toronto's bullpen, it looks a little bit tired. Obviously last night they won, 11-8 or 12-9. As we all know in this postseason, it's tough to win that way. But to get back to your original point, Springer's had a fabulous year. He's really doing what Toronto envisioned him to do when they signed him, which is be the leader of that young up-and-coming group. And sometimes when you put a team together that's expected to win like they were, it doesn't work out the first year. But the second, third year, it starts to gel and work out. And that's what's generally happened for them. Because, again, they played great for a couple of months, and they demolished the Yankees when they played them. But, we'll see what happens when they come to New York next week for those 3. But, Springer's had a terrific year, and he's really made a niche for himself with that leadoff home run spot. He's second to Ricky now, right? And, you talk about the 300 club, he's coming up on also the 300 home run club. So, he's a guy, if he could sustain this, and if he has the kind of career where he's really, really good until his late 30s or 40s, we could be talking Cooperstown for him someday. Long after I'm done voting, but we could be talking about that.
Dom, you are the best. Good luck with the book. I know we'll talk to you long before the book comes out because we'll have you on a couple more times to talk all this MLB and all the UConn football and stuff. So, but good luck with it anyway. We appreciate you as always. You make our show better when you come on. So thank you, Dom.
Thank you, Dom.
Guys, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Dom Amore, everybody from the Hartford Courant. Don't forget, get out there and check out that book with Jim Calhoun and Dom Amore. It's called More Than a Game, How the UConn Dynasty Was Built on a Culture of Caring. Listen, the guy had tough love, but it was love, and he loved all of his players, Jim Calhoun. That's why he won 3 national championships, and he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, do the first